radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yay, yay!
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting. A movement of people, it's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the poor where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. With you and God in time, my best align.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We're going to get it right.
We're going to get it right. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and White House correspondent, joining you live from Los Angeles in afternoon drive time, where I'm in touch, so you be in touch. Follow me on all the socials at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ. And there I am, fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or if you're feeling fancy, just tell Alexa. And there we are for your listening pleasure. Last but not least, subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode. We have so many wonderful announcements for you. One, the Left Coast Forum is coming to Los Angeles on October 25th. Go to KBLA1580.com to register for free to be a part of the Left Coast Forum, featuring keynote addresses from folks like Dr. Cornel West, folks like Richard Wolff, and so many other leaders on the front lines of progress here in this country are going to be here in LA. And for folks that are looking for an opportunity to tap in to some of the organizing work that is afoot defending our democracy, you don't want to miss the Left Coast Forum. October 25th, it's going to be happening at LA Trade Tech. And so go to KBLA1580.com to register for free. And I'm going to look for you there. All right. We're also celebrating the release of Stay, written and directed by Jazz Summers, as in the Jazz Summers that's my high school best friend turned Hollywood movie director. Well, last night had a chance to attend his premiere here in Los Angeles, and it was a beautiful sight to see. Have you ever watched your friend achieve their dream? Have you ever watched your friend's dream come true? Well, you know, that's what it was like for me last night, watching my friend, one of my oldest friends, watching his dream come true and watching the art that he wrote and directed finally on the silver screen. And so y'all don't got to wait any longer. You can just log on to Hulu and you can watch Stay and spread the word. Speaking of spreading the word, tomorrow morning, you're going to get a double dose of me from 9 a.m. to 12 noon Pacific. I'll be guest hosting on the Tavis Smiley Show. And so we've got some incredible guests lined up tomorrow to round out your week. And then I'll be right back here tomorrow afternoon. So that's what I mean. You'll get a double dose. But now it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. And kicking us off, a little bit of breaking news as we went on the air. ABC News is reporting that President Trump says that Israel and Hamas have signed off on the first phase of a peace deal. indirect ceasefire talks with Hamas and Israeli representatives began in Egypt on Monday in the Red Sea city of Sharm el-Sheikh. The talks come after Hamas responded positively to President Trump's proposal for peace in Gaza, though the group said more negotiations will be needed before a full agreement can be signed. But Hamas says it will release all remaining hostages if Israel withdraws from Gaza and proper field conditions are met. Intense and deadly Israeli attacks on Gaza City, which is the largest urban area in the Gaza Strip, and elsewhere in the devastated Palestinian territory have continued alongside the negotiations. And so some breaking news. Again, for folks who are just joining us, ABC News reporting that President Trump says that Israel and Hamas have signed off on the first phase of a peace deal. It looks to be a very fragile peace deal, but as more details become available, we'll be sure to share them. In related news, President Trump is saying he's going to go to the Middle East this weekend. The president said that negotiations over the ceasefire in Gaza and the release of Israeli hostages being held by Hamas are going very well, and he raised the possibility that he may head to the Middle East over the weekend, presumably to mark a ceasefire and release of hostages. And so we will keep our eye on that. While President Trump says he's going to the Middle East, Tennessee's Justin J. Pearson, one of the Tennessee Three, well, he announced that he might be running for Congress. The Griot is reporting that Tennessee State Representative Justin J. Pearson, he announced he's running for Congress, setting up a primary contest against longtime Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen. Pearson, who's 30 years old, gained national notoriety in 2023 after he was expelled from the Tennessee State House of Representatives. Pearson and Representatives Justin Jones and Gloria Johnson, known then as the Tennessee Three, were brought up on expulsion charges after participating in a protest against gun violence on the House floor with constituents. Pearson and Jones, who were both young and Black, were ultimately expelled. However, they both returned to their seats after being reelected in a special election. Pearson has remained a vocal advocate for gun safety reform in the state of Tennessee, and most recently led a grassroots movement against Elon Musk's AI data center in Memphis, which he and environmentalists warn has health safety hazard issues, that they are a health safety hazard due to the facility polluting the city's air quality. And so this week, we're hearing that Justin J. Pearson is running for Congress. And we're also hearing that Jesse Jackson Jr. Officially announced that he is running for Congress. You might remember he was right here on A More Perfect Union on Monday, saying that he had a major announcement to make on what is his father's 84th birthday. And so Jesse Jackson Sr. turns 84. Jesse Jackson Jr. announces that he is going to make a bid to return to Congress. He promised to come back on A More Perfect Union to lay out some of his policy positions, and we're going to hold him to it. And so congratulations to both of these extraordinary leaders. Both of them have been guests on this show, and both of them believe very deeply in doing what they can from where they are to build a more perfect union. Speaking of these data centers, it's worth noting that in thirsty Reno, Nevada, a crucial vote could usher in more water-guzzling data centers. NBC News is reporting that on the western edge of Nevada, it's hard to think about water. The driest state in the country is often hit by droughts, but that hasn't stopped developers from buying up ranches and farmland to build homes or businesses. But today, Reno, which is known as the biggest little city in the world, is poised to become a new player in the nation's data center construction boom. At least 3 data center projects have been approved since 2024, with more in a nearby industrial park. The giant computing facilities, they are essential essential to the internet as we know it, providing the digital infrastructure for cloud storage and for emerging artificial intelligence systems. They also require massive amounts of energy to run and often needs hundreds of thousands of gallons of water to stay cool. Some community leaders, like Reno's Vice Mayor Kathleen Taylor, she celebrated these data centers, which she says can bring jobs and can bring tax revenue. But earlier this year, officials projected a $25 million deficit in their upcoming budget. But opponents argue the data centers can also bring consequences if they raise electricity costs or cause water shortages down the road. Mark my words, these data centers that are popping up in different parts of the country, this is going to become a major issue because they're going to put additional demand on energy grids across the country. And some of these issues related to water shortages, fire danger, all of that stuff is going to come into play. And so it's important that we pay attention to what's happening in these communities across the country, from Tennessee to Reno and everywhere else. When we come forward, we're switching gears. I'm delighted to welcome Randall K. Johnson. He's a professor of law at the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Law, that is. He is more than a legal scholar, though. He's a teacher and a storyteller who believes deeply in the power of education to change lives. We're going to talk to him about some of the biggest trending headlines that have legal scholars across the country and around the world concerned. And then a little bit later, we're going to dig into his expertise when it comes to housing security and property rights. We've got a lot to discuss with Professor Randall K. Johnson. When we come forward, you're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-550-9651. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate, with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless, for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Hit me! National news, the consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and really delighted to welcome for the first time to our show Professor Randall K. Johnson. He's a professor of law over at the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Law. And as I said before, not only is he a well-respected legal scholar, he is a storyteller who believes deeply in the power of education to change lives. You don't always find that with legal scholars. You know, sometimes they're really good with the scholarship, but not as good with the storytelling. And so to find somebody who is really good at both and enjoys both, I think that's pretty special. And so welcome to the show, Professor Johnson. Professor Johnson, can you hear me? All right. Well, while we're waiting to hear Professor Johnson, let me share this. NBC News is reporting exclusively that Trump administration officials are seriously discussing invoking the Insurrection Act. That's what some sources are saying at this hour. One White House official, or I guess several White House officials, have held increasingly serious discussions in recent days about President Trump invoking the Insurrection Act, a rarely used 19th century law that gives the president the power to deploy active duty troops inside the United States for law enforcement purposes. Not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 people with knowledge of these talks shared this with NBC News. Professor Johnson, how concerned are you that this White House is looking for a reason to invoke the Insurrection Act? And while we are waiting for Professor Johnson's sound, look, we are live, and when we're live, things happen. That's fine. It is important that we really get into the contours of this because we actually had an insurrection on January 6th. And it's worth noting that earlier this year, shortly after President Trump took office, many of those folks who were charged, many of those folks who were convicted, many of those folks were pardoned. They were pardoned by President Trump. And, there are a lot of folks who wondered about the far-reaching implications of that. And so here we are, not even a full year into Trump's first year of his second term. And he's talking about invoking the Insurrection Act. His team is looking for a reason to invoke the Insurrection Act. It's worth noting that President Trump has sought to deploy National Guards troops in several major cities, including LA, Chicago, and Portland, and doing so saying that they're needed to reduce crime, to protect immigration and customs enforcement officials from protesters. And we know that critics have said that the Trump administration is exaggerating those issues in cities. And so I think we have figured out the sound issue. Professor Johnson, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Wonderful, great. And so I want to go back to my opening question with you. The fact that there are sources at this hour that are saying that the White House is engaged in increasingly serious discussions about invoking the Insurrection Act. How concerned are you that this president and this White House are looking for a reason to invoke the Insurrection Act? We were having a little bit of a. Are you on mute, Professor Johnson? That's all right. That's all right. We're gonna get Professor Johnson. I am determined to hear from this legal scholar today about this question, because when I first learned about this story, right away, I wanted to hear from someone who really understands the law and could really help to break it down for us. Obviously, there are the politics of looking for a reason to invoke the Insurrection Act, but there's also the legality and the constitutionality of invoking the Insurrection Act. And, look, a decision to invoke the Insurrection Act, it's not expected to be imminent. It's worth noting, it's not expected to be imminent. It may happen it may happen swiftly, but it's not going to happen right away. But the point is, were it to happen, it would be a notable escalation, especially since the National Guard is currently deployed in limited support roles, since active duty members of the military are forbidden from conducting civilian law enforcement actions, such as conducting searches and making arrests. But get this, the Insurrection Act, it allows the president to deploy troops inside the United States for that purpose. And so, in my view, by doing this, it allows the president to essentially turn the National Guard into his own national police force. I'm not sure, is Professor Randall with us? Professor Randall, are you there?
Can you hear me? I'm here.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Welcome back. All right. So back to my original question, Professor Randall, how concerned are you about this president, this White House invoking the Insurrection Act, or at least looking for a reason to? So we are not able to hear Professor Randall, and what we're going to do is we're going to ask Professor Randall to phone in, and we're going to tap him in because we're having a little bit of a challenge with the connection, but that's okay, because we're going to make sure that we hear from Professor Randall loud and clear. And so Brother Andy in the chat is going to take care of that, getting Professor Randall to call in to the show, and we'll get you tapped in via audio. But in the meantime, let me finish this point. Let me just wrap up this point, and tie it to sort of real world implications. It is worth noting that not even a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, you all might remember here in Los Angeles, outside Arleta High School, there's a 15-year-old disabled kid who was confronted by federal agents, by ICE agents. And that confrontation escalated very quickly. That confrontation led to guns being drawn out on this 15-year-old disabled kid. And you might remember that I pointed that out to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. I also pointed it out to President Trump in the Oval Office, asking what their message was to parents who at the time were preparing to send their kids back to school. What was their message to folks who are concerned that you have these federalized law enforcement in community doing work, but not having been trained in local policing? You know, all the talk around de-escalation and all that's not what they're trained in. And we saw what happened. We saw what almost happened with that 15-year-old disabled kid right here in Los Angeles. And there have been other stories in recent months with folks being harmed by federal law enforcement that is not trained in local policing. And so there is a strong possibility that if the president, if the White House is successful in finding a reason to invoke the Insurrection Act, this could mean federal law enforcement being empowered to be local law enforcement across the country without any of the training and likely without any of the accountability either. What does that mean in terms of oversight? What does that mean in terms of accountability? You'd have a law enforcement, a class of law enforcement that would be accountable to only one person. That would be the president. Trump plans to deploy, his plans to deploy the National Guard have occasionally hit legal hurdles. Most recently, a federal judge in Oregon on Sunday blocked him from sending Guard members from any state to Portland. The next day, President Trump said publicly that he would invoke the Insurrection Act if it was necessary. This is a real threat. This ain't nothing to play with. And when we come forward, we're going to invite Professor Randall Johnson to weigh in on this in the event that there's any way we can get ahead of it. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The last of 10 Black inmates who escaped a New Orleans jail in May has been captured. Black Atlanta Deputy Chief Kelly Collier gave details on the arrest.
Southeast Fugitive Task Force, in conjunction with the Atlanta Police Department and the Clayton County Police Department, were able to take Derek Groves, 28 years old, into custody here on Honeysuckle Lane.
Convicted killer Derek Groves was arrested in Atlanta after months on the run. Louisiana State Police say former Louisiana State University receiver Kyron Lacey's reckless driving caused a 2024 crash that killed 78-year-old Herman Hall. New video shows Lacey, who was Black, speeding and passing in a no-passing zone. Lacey died by apparent suicide in April before a grand jury hearing. And Black Tennessee lawmaker Justin J. Pearson, one of the Tennessee Three, is running for Congress. He's vowing to fight for gun safety, affordable housing, and working families. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Delays in Pasadena due to a crash on the 134 eastbound past San Rafael. That's where the carpool and left lanes have been blocked. Delays away from Glendale Avenue. Also in Glendale, 5 northbound before Western. That's a crash. Second lane from the left is blocked. Delays pushing back. Let's see what this slow drive is like. It's slowing just before the 134. It looks like from about Colorado at this time. And South 5 slowing out of Burbank from Olive all the way to the 605.
Want to save a few bucks this season? Then head over to your local Big O Tires for their Save a Buck sales event. You'll save up to $250 on select sets of tires with paid installation through October 19th. The Save a Buck sales event, now at your local Big O Tire.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A very sympathetic statistic concerning Colorado football coach Deion Sanders. When Deion had minor surgery Tuesday to remove potential blood clots in his left foot, it was the 16th time the 58-year-old coach has undergone surgery in the last 3 years. Blood clots in Deion's legs have led to several procedures, including having 2 toes amputated because of poor circulation. Deion had surgery in May to remove tumors after he was diagnosed with bladder cancer. Despite all of Deion's health ailments, he was on the field Wednesday afternoon for practice. Colorado was at home Saturday against Iowa State. There will be no undefeated watch in the NFL now that the Buffalo Bills and Philadelphia Eagles have lost their first game. Who was the last NFL team to go through an entire regular season undefeated? Send your answer to Ray at SmileyAudiomedia.com. Ray at SmileyAudiomedia.com. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33 and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yeah. We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
I'm not sure why.
Your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support.
Yeah, I see
reminders, connections to local services, transportation
I'm just going to call it now. Should I just close it out on my computer?
And childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need.
Yeah, here I am at my computer.
Connect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day.
Yeah, it is.
1-833-522-5263.
Okay, I'm going to tell you what the computer
is a community call to action from KBLA.
Can you hear me okay now? My computer mic is lighting up.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Professor Randall Johnson, are you there?
Finally.
Well, we're so glad to hear your voice and to see your image streaming with us live here. Professor, I've got to ask you, as a legal scholar and as a historian, as somebody who's steeped in politics, help us understand, your reaction to this president and this White House looking for a reason to invoke the Insurrection Act.
So the Insurrection Act is a pretty serious thing. It's a 19th century device that was used to deal with unlikely situations, emergency situations, if you will. Generally speaking, these are going to be situations in which there's substantial increases in crime, there's rebellions, and or there's some kind of other unlawful obstruction. It's meant to supplement what law enforcement does, not to replace it.
They're not looking to supplement the work that is happening by local law enforcement across the country. In my view, it looks like it's a cut around. They are looking to circumvent. They are looking to become the local law enforcement that's not accountable to a mayor, that's not accountable to a governor, that's accountable to this president and this president only. No.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. It's unprecedented in the modern history of this country. I think that one of the things that it really does underscore is the importance of rules. The US system is founded upon rules. There's a US federal constitution that divides up authority between the federal government and states. The federal government can only exercise those particular rights that are described in the US federal constitution, the enumerated rights. To add anything additional would act in an unlawful manner. It's generally what a legal scholar would refer to as acting ultra vires, and that cannot stand.
And so help me understand, where do we go from here? I mean, I don't see any prominent Democrats, really drawing a bright line. And I don't see any Republicans of prominence drawing any bright line saying this would be over the line and there would be a consequence.
I think it's up to those of us that are regular citizens. We have to get involved. We have to put pressure on our local elected officials, put pressure on other people that represent us, members of Congress, members of the state houses, members of the US federal legislature. And what we have to say is that enough is enough. We are a country of rules. And as a result, it's important that we stand on the rules. And the Insurrection Act is an emergency act that's only supposed to be used in certain special instances and no other.
And so, help us understand, how bad this can get, how nasty this can get, how funky this can get before it gets better. If this president, if this White House, uses a protest, for example, could even be a peaceful protest, as a justification for unleashing the Insurrection Act. Talk to us about, what are some of the far-reaching consequences we could see that are at odds with anyone who claims to be a proponent of law and order?
I think the real way to think about this is that the president, by right, has broad discretion. Once he invokes the Insurrection Act, he has the ability to determine the bases for making a deployment. He can use increased crime. He can use the notion that something is considered to be a rebellion. Any president that's duly elected has this authority. And that is also part and parcel of our system. I think that one of the things to really underscore is that this particular administration has forced us to re-examine our first principles, to really focus upon the reason why rules exist and to underscore the importance of all of us adhering to rules. In some ways, I would argue it's a blessing in disguise. It's a call to action for those of us who are on the sidelines to play a more active role in our society.
Talk to us about how much more challenging this would make life for, protesters, peaceful protesters across the country. We know the president just yesterday had a convening at the White House around Antifa. We know that this president and this White House have been looking for organizations that have any connection to progressive donors like George Soros, among others, and looking for ways in which to not just make the funding environment hard for them, but to even go as far as reclassifying them as terrorist organizations. Again, if this president is successful in invoking the Insurrection Act on top of some of the other things that's happening, talk to us about what that does, how that might impact our First Amendment rights, our right to peacefully protest our government, our right to lift our voices in protest to what's happening in this country.
Well, as a general matter, any person who's lawfully present in the United States, not just US citizens, but anyone who lawfully is here within the geographic boundaries of this country has certain rights. Those rights are described both by the US federal constitution, state constitutions, and other enactments. Those are pronouncements or laws that are then signed by some executive. That can happen at the federal level, it can happen at the state level, it can happen at the local level. And one way to think about what this broad, if you would argue, legal scheme consists of is the ability to do certain things. The First Amendment protects our ability to engage in what you would call free speech. One example of free speech is engage in protests, but these rights are not absolute. And one of the key components of exercising that right is knowing how far they go. There's a number of different cases that we could talk about that explain the fact that an individual has the ability to raise concerns about their own government. They also have the ability to raise concerns about other people who are acting on behalf of the government, such as public accommodations. Use of the emergency exception, also referred to as the Insurrection Act, can throw that into doubt. But that doesn't mean we're without any remedy. One of the classic remedies is for a person who's harmed by governmental action to speak back. One way to do so is to file a court case. I think that that's going to be one of the primary mechanisms that's going to be available to people who are having their First Amendment rights impaired. And the classic argument is simply to say that the president hasn't done enough to show he's entitled to make use of this emergency exception. And as a result, he should be stopped from doing so.
When we come forward, I want to talk about extremism. As a legal scholar, I know you pay extra close attention to the definition of things. Our legal system, our legal framework, pays extra close attention to how people define things and who is harmed and how that harm is articulated. Well, right now, there are extremism experts that have long described groups like Antifa as having no centralized leadership, no formal leadership or membership or organizational structure, and that they've generally been described by federal law enforcement as decentralized movements of activists who engage in protest activity, some of which has included property destruction and street violence. I want to talk to you about the Trump administration's proposal to define these organizations as terrorist organizations. It doesn't seem to me that the shoe fits, but it doesn't mean that this administration is above making the shoe fit. We're going to talk about that when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Professor Randall K. Johnson, professor of law at the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Law.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Seems like there's more identity theft in the news every day.
Another major healthcare breach was reported today, resulting in the exposure. 4 consumers have been a victim of identity.
That's because there are endless places that could accidentally expose you to identity theft in a breach or simply by mistake. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Stop settling for weak sound. It's time to level up your game and bring the boom. Hit the town with the ultra-durable LG X Boom portable speaker and enjoy vibrant sound wherever you go. Elevate your listening experience to new heights because, let's be real, your music deserves it. The future of sound is now with LG X Boom. And for a limited time, save 25% at LG.com with code FALL25. Bring the boom. X Boom.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
What make
California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
We face tragedy, but we don't fall into despair. We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 15. I almost said screaming. Hopefully you're not screaming it. Hopefully you're streaming it. Streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. I'm really delighted to be in conversation with a very bright legal scholar, legal mind, Professor Randall K. Johnson. He's a professor of law over at the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Law, right there in the heartland. So, we got the right one to really get to the heart of the matter here. I mentioned right before the break that the White House recently convened a roundtable discussion that included folks like Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, where there's a lot of conversation about groups. And the conversation really was focused on comparing Antifa to MS-13 and Hamas and Hezbollah and the Islamic State, calling this loosely affiliated network of anti-fascist street activists, quotes, just as dangerous as designated terrorist organizations during this White House roundtable discussion. Professor, that in the legal profession and elsewhere, words matter. When it comes to rule of law, definitions of terms matter. Talk to us about the danger of applying a very broad definition of terrorist to include activists that are simply asserting their First Amendment right, to conflate, some of these, loosely affiliated networks of anti-fascist street activists to conflate their movement and their work with MS-13, with Hamas, with Hezbollah, with the Islamic State. Talk to us about the danger of the White House, the president, applying such a broad definition to groups that simply are against fascism in all its forms.
I think it's a challenging approach. As a general matter, again, if we're going to return to our discussion of the Insurrection Act, the president has broad discretion once he makes use of that option to draw distinctions between groups. You mentioned several criteria that might be used to make a determination that a group could be considered to be a terrorist group. One such example is that it has a centralized leadership. A second possibility is that it has some kind of formal membership. Third is it has some kind of coordinated activities. Each one of those requirements doesn't seem to be met with respect to groups such as Antifa. I think that that's going to be the place to start when examining whether this particular position that's taken by the U.S. federal government is one that's supported by the evidence. I think one of the challenges in the U.S. legal system is when we make determinations without drawing upon evidence, having them grounded in information that's relevant and probative, we put ourselves in a position in which we run afoul, not just of the rules of the U.S. legal system, but the rules that govern the way that our society works.
I mean, it's worth noting that during Wednesday's roundtable, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, sat right beside the president. She sat right beside President Trump, and she repeated his condemnations of Antifa, saying, quotes, "This is not activism, it's anarchy." She went on to say, quotes, "We can't and we will not let masked terrorists burn our buildings, attack our law enforcement, and intimidate our communities." Well, last time I checked, with the exception of burning down any buildings, I think there are a number of people that feel that sort of impact from these masked ICE agents that are a part of these mass deportation efforts, particularly in cities like Los Angeles, where our home station is located, in cities like Chicago, in places like DC. Is this our government essentially saying, do as we say, not as we do?
I think the reality is that when we think about these topics, we have to have some kind of principled way of making determinations. As a general matter, law enforcement should announce itself. I think that one of the challenges that we faced over the last 30 years or so is the increased use of deception by law enforcement. One such example is the use of undercover officers. I think that that's a challenging approach. And I've heard a number of different critiques of this approach, both by members of law enforcement themselves, as well as members of the military. One of the reasons why we have uniforms is to announce the fact that we're in alliance. We're aligned with a government that has legitimacy. When we move away from that, we put ourselves in a position in which it's unclear the status of the individual that's approaching us and whether or not we must lawfully comply. So with that as a potential framework for understanding, I think that one principal way to address the matter with respect to Antifa and also with respect to ICE agents is to say, as a general matter, when you're in a public space, you should not be masked unless you have some countervailing reason for doing so. You have some health concern, you've been directed to do so for a particular purpose by the US federal government or another government, or you just are in a position in which you have to subject yourself to scrutiny. And I think that that's one of the underlying challenges in all of this discussion, is that there doesn't seem to be a great amount of accountability with respect to people's adherence to the rules. Rules come in a number of different varieties, but some of the most important are found in our US federal Constitution.
Professor Johnson, in our remaining minutes, it's worth noting that Trump has called for jailing the Chicago mayor and the Illinois governor as the National Guard is arriving in the city of Chicago. On Truth Social Wednesday morning, the president posted, quotes, "Chicago mayor should be in jail for failing to protect ICE officers." Governor Pritzker also. It's worth noting that both Mayor Johnson and Governor Pritzker are Democrats. Trump's remarks come as National Guard's troops have begun arriving in Chicago at the order of Trump, despite objections from these Illinois officials. These stories, in my view, are not disconnected. We started off talking about the president and the administration flirting with, basically looking for a reason to employ the Insurrection Act. We talked about a White House roundtable that included the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, and included Attorney General Bondi, which seemed to lay the groundwork for broadening the definition of terrorist group to include groups like Antifa and other anti-fascist organizations. And now here we have the president posting on Truth Social a call for the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois to be put in jail for failing to protect ICE officers. It seems to me that this might be the test case, for invoking the Insurrection Act. And, in our remaining minutes, if he were to do that, how much easier would it be to actually jail a sitting elected official like a mayor or a governor, or severely downgrade their authority?
Yeah, I think it's a real challenge. One of the ways to think about what we've observed over the last few months is that we've had an increasing attempt by various governments to question the underlying foundations of our society. One of the ways that these challenges occur is by not meeting the basic legal minimums. In order to determine that someone can make use of the Insurrection Act, there are certain requirements. In order to designate someone as a terrorist, there are certain requirements. In order to make a determination that a person has committed a crime, there are certain requirements. And truthfully speaking, and this is speaking as a private individual, I believe in this government. I believe in the US federal constitutional order. I believe in the ability for us to do better by ourselves. And one of the ways we can do so is by holding our elected officials to account. If that were to happen to the to the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois, I would be seriously concerned. As a private citizen, I would call upon my fellow citizens to take a stand. Stands could take the form of speaking out in a physical space. It could take the form of writing something. It could take the form of filing a lawsuit. I think all should be on the table.
Our thanks to Professor Randall K. Johnson. He is a professor of law over at the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Law. We have only scratched the surface, and we look forward to having you back on to help us sort of separate the fact from the fiction. I mean, my big takeaway from this conversation is that we can't look away as private citizens. We cannot look away and accept these behaviors, the skirting from norms, the overturning of precedents. We cannot turn away. And you better believe here on A More Perfect Union, we're going to do our part to make sure that's not the case. Our thanks to Professor Randall K. Johnson. You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More in our next hour.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Texas National Guard troops are stationed at an Army Reserve Center in Elwood, Illinois, possibly to guard an ICE facility in Broadview. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson called the move illegal and unconstitutional, saying the Texas governor should mind his own business. Black Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is pushing to legalize poker, blackjack, and commercial bingo. Her new